Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your lunches and some continued conversation with new colleagues and friends. I'd like to welcome you to session number 7, in which we hope to emphasize all things transnational, transformational, in terms of identity or the role of representation in transforming audiences and ideas and identities. We will have 3 speakers, and I will introduce them one at a time. Our first speaker is Dr. Yahya Laayouni, who is an associate professor of Arabic studies at Bloomsburg University in Pennsylvania. His research focuses on the complexity of identity in French and Maghrebi films. He's particularly interested in gender and race, and sexuality in film. These are topics that I think will cross the entire panel. And he is significantly one of the co-organizers of a very unique and fresh organization called the New York Forum of Amazigh Film, which I hope he will give us a lot of good information about. His discussion will focus on the problematization of the question, what is Moroccan identity? So please welcome Dr. Laayouni. Thank you very much.
Hi, can you hear me? Good? Good enough? Okay. So this is just part of a larger project that I'm working on and problematizing Moroccan identity in connection with Blackness in Morocco and also Jewishness. And this one will focus on the Amazigh component of Moroccan identity. Of course, I'm going to try to reference the other ones as I am reading. So prior to 2011, the constitutions of North African countries, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya, identified themselves as Arab Islamic countries with no recognition of their society's cultural, ethnic, linguistic, and religious diversity. In 2003, Algeria became the only country where Tamazight had the status of a national language, a symbolic recognition that came after a long struggle but did not have any real significance or impact on the Amazigh of Algeria. It was only after the democratic spring, and I underline here democratic spring, sparked in Tunisia and spread to other neighboring countries that we started to see a call for minority rights. Most North African governments were forced to reform their constitutions or change them altogether. And part of this reform was to recognize the cultural, religious, racial, and linguistic diversity that exists in their societies. The Moroccan Constitution was the first to include Tamazight as an official language in 2011. So it states, quote, Tamazight constitutes an official language of the state, being a common patrimony of all Moroccans without exception. I mean, the language can be contested, especially in Arabic, but we'll move on. In Algeria, Tamazight became official in 2016. In Tunisia, however, nothing has changed. and the constitution still affirms that Arabic is the official language and that Tunisia is part of the Arab world. In Libya, also, little progress has been made, and in 2014, the reformed constitution affirms that the official language is Arabic, but states that it recognizes and guarantees the protection of the linguistic and cultural rights of Amazigh, Tuareg, and all components of the Libyan society. So the Moroccan constitution seems to be the most progressive, as it emphasizes, in addition to Tamazight, the plurality and richness of the Moroccan identity. And this is in Article 5. I will just read a little bit of it. So Morocco's unity is forged by the convergence of its Arabic, Islamic, Amazigh, and Saharan Hassani components, nourished and enriched by its African, Andalusian, Hebraic, and Mediterranean influences. Of course, the article goes on. It should also be noted that the reformed constitution moved away from using the word Arab when referring to the Maghreb. So the phrase that was used previously was Greater Arab Maghreb, or Maghreb Arab Union. But now, as stated in the preamble, the Kingdom of Morocco, a unified state, totally sovereign, belonging to the Grand Maghreb. So Arab has been removed. Reaffirms that which follows and commits itself to work for the construction of the Union of the Maghreb. So it took almost 60 years for the Moroccan government to recognize Tamazight as an official language and to affirm that Moroccan identity has been enriched by the Hassani, African, Hebraic, Andalusian, and Mediterranean influences, as I mentioned earlier. Whether this reference is politically motivated or not, the decision to include these identity markers has made a positive impact. So for more than 6 decades, the Arab Islamic identity was the only identity recognized in the Constitution and promoted through the official discourse. School curricula, starting from elementary school up to the university level, enforced the Arabic Islamic identity. Millions of Moroccans whose language, religion, or culture were different from what was stated in the Constitution were denied that their identity be recognized and celebrated. It is worth noting that French has always enjoyed an official status even after Morocco's independence by being the language used along with Arabic in official documents. So though the 2011 constitution changes sound progressive and promising, the social recognition and the institutional implementation of this diversity are still proceeding only slowly. The impact of Arab nationalism and the Islamic identity made Morocco, even prior to its independence, an extension of the Arab East. Moroccans who dare to identify as non-Arab or non-Muslim or contest the Arab Islamic identity are considered traitors and accused of serving a divisive Western agenda. After its independence, Morocco engaged in the process of Arabization in an attempt to replace French, but this process failed miserably. Up to this day, we're witnessing this in Morocco, debate on which language to use, French and/or Arabic, is still a hot topic. The process of Arabizing the Moroccan system was not necessarily to establish Arabic as the official language to replace French, because as I said, French is still used, but it was implemented for political and religious reasons. One of its ultimate aims was to deny Moroccans their plural identity in order to assimilate an Arab Islamic identity. So my concern in this paper is to contest that the idea of identity is static. I argue that identity evolves and changes over time by interacting with and embracing new identities. In the case of Morocco, this process of fusion has given birth to a transcultural Moroccan identity at both the individual and collective levels. And that spans hundreds of years. I would like also to explore whether or not the reformed constitution has managed to change the perception of Moroccans on linguistic, ethnic, cultural, and religious diversity. So where did it start? The national identity and Pan-Arabism, a divisive discourse. So one of the most important events in the history of Morocco, one that triggered the notion of Arabism and solidified a group of nationalists, was the decree of 1930, falsely called the Berber Decree. That's not the name that was used in official documents. So the decree was simply meant to give the Amazigh tribes the option to use their customary laws, a practice that had been already initiated in 1914, but nothing has been said then. However, the decree was exploited by Moroccan nationalists who called it the Berber Decree, and it gave them a reason to promote Arab nationalism that was already underway in many parts of the Middle East. As a reaction to the decree, Moroccan nationalists organized the Latif Protests, whereby they urged Moroccans to recite the following prayer, and I will say it. It says, "O Allah, the benevolent, we ask you benevolence in whatever fate brings, and do not separate us from our brothers, the Berbers." As you will see, the last part was forgotten after Morocco got the independence, the separation between the brother Berbers. Immediately after this event, Moroccan nationalists started to call for Arab Islamic assimilation. One of their goals was to prohibit any formal or official use of the Amazigh dialects in any way, shape, or form. In other words, they were calling for a total Arabization of the Amazigh communities with no consideration for their cultural and linguistic differences. Moroccan nationalists adopted the Pan-Arabism ideology, whose objective was to unite North African and Middle Eastern countries under a linguistic and later a religious banner. Even though the pioneers of Pan-Arabism were mostly Arab Christians, the concept was welcomed by majority Muslim states and later was connected to Islam. So the fact that Arabic is the language of the Quran has facilitated the process of calling for an Arab Islamic identity that supersedes any other ethnic, religious, linguistic, or cultural identity. So Pan-Arabism neglected the diverse cultures and languages that constitute this vast region. Moroccans, particularly Amazigh people, have become alienated and were forced to accept that all Moroccans are Arabs, with no recognition of their ancestral heritage. So the creation of the Arab League and later the Great Arab Maghreb continued to impose an identity on North African people with which many do not necessarily identify. So the promotion of the Great Arab Maghreb and Pan-Arab unity under the premise that these countries share similar past, same religion, and the same language has led to more division, the opposite of its intended effect. Nowadays, for political and ideological reasons, Moroccans find themselves torn between two political discourses, an Arab-Islamic one and a secular post-colonial discourse, one with the former being more influential. So any claim of an identity that does not glorify the Arab-Islamic belonging is looked upon as a threat to Moroccan national identity. People who dare to promote Amazigh culture, for instance, and talk openly about are labeled as sometimes pro-Israel, not true Muslims, you name it, and that they are paid to denigrate Arabic and Islam. I just give one example, Hamid Asid, I believe my colleagues in Morocco know him. One prominent defender of the plurality of Moroccan identity has been accused of promoting a Western agenda and has received death threats for promoting such ideas and for being critical of the Islamic Turath, which is Islamic heritage. So recognizing the richness of Moroccan identity should not remain on paper only, but rather it should be promoted and accessible at all levels. School textbooks, TV programs, academic research, films, arts, etc. need to dedicate time to educate future generations about the richness of Moroccan identity. Moroccans need to know that the construction of their identity did not start and end with the Arab conquest and the spread of Islam in the region. But it is much more than that. This mindset that what preceded Islam should be considered jahiliyyah or ignorance and better be forgotten is discriminatory and will continue to raise tensions. Mainstream discourse should stop using the Arab Islamic card against anyone and anything that is different. I'm about to finish. So we are all Moroccans unified by Islam is a recurrent answer that Moroccans repeat in an attempt to divert the focus of any discussion about identity. The religious identity has always taken precedence over the cultural identity and has ultimately contributed to the marginalization of the other components. So the exclusive discourse of Pan-Arabism ideology has been contested by a discourse that is more inclusive and cognizant of the diverse origins of Moroccan identity. And I'm hopeful. So being Moroccan, being transcultural, as part of North Africa, Morocco has come into contact with many foreign cultures, religions, ethnicities, starting with the Phoenicians, then the Romans, the Vandals, the Arabs, and then with the French and Spanish. These historical processes have given birth to a transcultural identity where the fusion of all these origins, cultures, and religions have given the Moroccan identity its uniqueness. However, for generations, the aspiration for an Arab Islamic identity has made Moroccans reject any other identification because it is irrelevant and less important and even divisive. Being Muslim, Arab, and being proud of belonging to the Ummah have always been the ultimate goal, whether under the banner of the linguistic Arabic and or the religious Islam unity of North Africa and the Middle East. The specificity of North African identity had no place. Let me just one more paragraph. I will conclude. So in Morocco, the Amazigh, the Jew, the Black, the Christian, and other minority groups are looked at as the other. Minority rights in Morocco are not respected, and there are no laws in place to protect them. Racism, discrimination, and misrepresentation against the above-mentioned groups have always been prevalent within the Moroccan society. The identity fracture in Morocco has resulted in some groups taking radical positions, unfortunately, when it comes to representing selfhood. So, ethnically and culturally, Moroccans are a diverse society, and the indigenous people of North Africa did not live in isolation. They have always welcomed and adopted other cultures, and intermarriages between the indigenous people and other ethnicities have been the norm. Linguistically, Moroccan Darija actually is a mixture of different languages and dialects that coexist together and are used daily by Moroccans. So this transcultural, translingual model exists, but it has been neglected and marginalized by politicians and the mainstream discourse. So my last sentence here is recognizing Moroccan transcultural identity could help reshape the way Moroccans perceive themselves and the world around them. Thank you.